So if we're going into a big business meeting and we're worried about what our investors are going to say, what our C-suite board's going to say, we're still having the same physical reaction as if we were seeing a saber-toothed tiger from, thousands and thousands of years ago. So it is a physical and mental relationship.
This is the Born to be Brilliant podcast, helping you harness the habits and unlock the tools to bring you more meaning, vibrance, and the personal power to help you shine like the diamond you are. Hello everyone, welcome to this episode. Today I have Katie Maycock in talking all about burnout. She's an absolute burnout queen and she's here to help us get our stuff together generally. Katie, welcome to the podcast.
Well, thank you so much for having me. I'm very excited to be here.
I can't wait to have this conversation with you. After seeing Katie speaking live at an event, I just had to get her on the podcast because Katie shares so much about burnout, and particularly for our audience who are predominantly women who are in business, who are a lot like myself, juggling lots of things. Burnout's really common, and I think more and more people are talking about it. So Katie's here to shed some more light on this for us today and tell us how we can deal with this. Katie, before we go deep, just tell us what burnout even is. Can you just clear that one up? Because I think it can be misunderstood and become a buzzword otherwise, can't it?
Well, it has become a little bit of a buzzword, and that is a bit of a problem. But essentially, the way I describe burnout, it's physical, mental, and emotional exhaustion that happens from prolonged stress. And I really want to stress the word prolonged stress. And I think a lot of people sort of now are like, I woke up burnt out today, and that it's not quite like that. It's definitely something that takes time, and it takes time to overcome it as well.
That's really good to know, because I remember saying to you at the event I saw you at, I was like, how do you know when it's burnout and when it's just hormonal? And you were like, well, because that will come and go, with the hormones and the time of the month or whatever it may be. Whereas burnout is going to hang around. It's not.
And as women, our hormones are going to exacerbate that as well. So if you're burnt out and you're going through any type of hormones, so whether you're menstruating or it's that time of the month or you're perimenopause or you're going through menopause, it is going to exacerbate all of it. So that's always what I talk to. I remember that question. I was actually thinking about that just yesterday. So yeah, I think that's something else to really think about.
Yeah, because like we say, as a buzzword, I think some people do. It's like when people go, oh, I've got the flu, and they've actually got a cold, or and exaggerate these things. And I don't like that kind of catastrophic language that I think we can, end up convincing ourselves something's worse than it is. But let's call a spade, and let's identify when it is, because I think if people actually know that you are on the path to burnout here, then they can recognize it and ideally do something about it. So yeah, how would somebody then identify if they're burning out or just a bit tired and stressed?
Yeah, and I think that's the biggest question, right? And I know that when we were at the event, I sort of went through the 6 stages, and I think if we can briefly go through the 6 stages,
definitely
that actually helps people sort of identify where they're at. So if we start off from the very beginning stages of burnout, it's always excitement. And especially when I work with business owners or leaders or anything like that, there is this part where they're so excited because they've either set up a new business or they've got a new opportunity or whatever it is. And there's that excitement phase in there. So physically, mentally, and emotionally, they're really energetic. They're very positive. There's a lot of clarity. There's a lot of focus. And so that's the first stage. The dilemma with stage 1 is what I typically see with business owners or leaders or really anyone that's really working hard towards a goal, or let's just call them high achievers. They create unsustainable habits. So maybe they don't sleep as much. Maybe they're not going to the gym. Maybe they're sacrificing healthy eating. Maybe they're not taking as much downtime. All of these things with the idea of, well, once I get X off the ground, or once I reach this destination in time, I'll go back to doing all of that. And what happens is they don't do that. And then what easily happens within, either a month or up to 6 months, you can fall into the second stage, which is what I call working harder. So you're still achieving the same results that you got at stage 1 from all those unsustainable habits that you've created, and you're still performing at a high level, but it's taking more physical, mental, and emotional energy to get the same results. So no one around you is going to really notice. Only you're going to start going, oh, okay, like I just have to focus a little bit harder. I'm getting a bit distracted. We're not talking like crazy distraction. We're just saying, that focus is sort of waned just a little bit. You might be a little bit tired, but nothing like a cup of coffee or a cup of tea won't resolve. And emotionally, you're still excited, but there is that sort of, it's not the same heightened level of excitement. So everything's just sort of dulled down.
Yeah.
But you're still achieving. And so you keep going. And so then you fall into stage 3. Now, stage 3 is when the cracks are really going to start to show for yourself and for people around you. I find this stage really interesting, especially with CEOs, because what I find happens at this stage, it's usually at home, things are starting to crack. So at work, you're still achieving what you need to achieve. Maybe your performance has dipped just a little bit, potentially. But physically you're starting to feel tired. Yeah, of course you could have a couple of really good night's sleeps and start to sort of recharge. But it's that emotional change that's really changing at this stage. So maybe you've gone from being cool, calm, and collected to being quick to be frustrated, quick to anger, have that shorter fuse. Or maybe you're withdrawing, which is another massive part of burnout. And I think what I see, especially with business owners, they're able to put on a mask to go to work, which is taking more energy to do. And it's usually the performance at home that's starting to dip. They're not able to go to, the family events or be present with family and things like that. And that's where they start to get a bit frayed. However, it also might be happening at work. It's really, really dependent on the person. But I typically find business owners, it's more that side. And when we put mums into the mix, there's that guilt, there's that sort of shame coming in there, and there's that battle that's going on, but you're so tired, you have to keep going. To be fair, stage 3 is the last stage you want to get to before you get any further, but let's keep going. So stage 4 is what I call illness and anxiety, and I'm starting to put a little bit of denial in there, and I'll explain that in a second. Something that we have to understand is that stress is a physiological response. It's not just a mental health response, or it's just not a mental response. It's it's both, but it really has a detrimental impact on your body. So this is when we're starting to see that fatigue really kick in. We're starting to see health issues arise. And these health issues, to be honest, can be quite vague. So you might just not be feeling quite right. Maybe you've got skin irritations. Maybe you've got inflammation in parts of your body that you haven't had before. Maybe things just aren't quite right. And you go to the doctors, you do all the blood works, and everything comes back clear. Sometimes it does come back with something, but sometimes it just doesn't. And that can be quite frustrating for people. A big thing that I talk about is gut health. I actually started my career as a nutritionist and gut health specialist, and I've somehow led that into my work now. But that's a big piece there as well. But I think that's the physical side, and a lot of people will go to doctors, and the doctor might say, I think it could be stress. And if you're anything like me, you would have said, of course I'm stressed out. I've got all these health issues. So of course, why wouldn't I be stressed?
Yeah.
But I think there's that also emotional side that really starts to kick in, which is that anxiety can really take hold. Mm-hmm. When I burnt out, I would have told you I had high functioning anxiety. And I'm like, I look back at that and I'm like, what a weird thing to say. Like I was functioning. I was able to do my job. I was not coping well though. I was having panic attacks nearly every day coming into work, and I'd never had a panic attack in my life before that. And I was having 3 before I'd even walk into the office. So that was one thing. But anxiety can really take hold at this stage. And then on the cognitive side, you're just making mistakes because obviously you're not feeling great and all of that sort of kicking in as well. Then we fall into, and this is really disastrous for any business owners or high achievers or anything like that, which is where there's this apathy. Apathy is one of the most dangerous things you can have in any type of workplace, whether it's you as a business owner or if any of your employees have apathy. And what we really have to understand at this phase is it's not that you don't care, it's that your body and your brain are so overwhelmed that they've just shut down, so you actually can't care. because you're so overwhelmed. They can't take on any more stress. And so that's the really dangerous part when you have that apathy phase. And that's where a lot of people sort of not start to go, I don't recognize myself. Who am I? All of that kind of stuff. And then you kind of fall very, very quickly into burnout, which is that physical, mental, and emotional exhaustion. So at this stage, physically, your health issues are getting significantly worse, or they're not getting better at all. You're probably fleeting between anxiety and apathy. And I think when it comes to apathy as well, just to pause here for a second, a lot of people might get diagnosed with like depression and things like that. Not to say that it's not depression, because I'm not a psychiatrist or a psychologist, but I think there is this conversation between that depression and that apathy where it can get misdiagnosed. And mentally, what's really happening is, if you've ever burnt out, this will make sense to you, but it's like you can't take in information. It's like every thought is going through molasses. It's like your thoughts are like smoke. You can't even grasp it. So you can see people talking to you, you can read emails, you can have all of that, but you can't generate that into anything meaningful. And so it's more than just a lack of focus. It's more than just a lack of concentration. There's this mental fatigue that you can't even string words together in your head. And that's really what burnout is. And, you know, it's not just fatigue. It's not just, I don't feel great today. It's so much more impactful on a person, on their physical well-being, in every aspect of their life. Like, it's every aspect of their life will be impacted by burnout.
If you're with these stages, do you progress through them like linear fashion, or can you dip into and kind of, you know, teeter on the edge of? Because I would say there are things you've said there where I'm like, oh, I've definitely had moments of like, oh, feel like some of that, but then I'm like, no, I'm good, I'm back from it, and then it's like, oh, there it is, and it kind of shows up but disappears. And can that happen, or is it like a lineage?
No, I would say something that I really think about is this cyclical burnout, which typically happens with high achievers and business owners. And so this is why it's not, when someone goes, how long does it take to burn out? It's like, I don't know, it can take you a year, it could take you 10 years, because you might get to stage 4, you know, take a little break, have restructure, but you've not really resolved everything. So you might go to stage 2, stage 3, and then you quickly get back to that other stage. And it's like that cyclical part. And I think cyclical burnout is so dangerous, and we don't talk about it enough at all, because I think, burnout's a relatively new, it's not new, but it is a relatively new diagnosable syndrome that the World Health Organization has said is diagnosable. But I just don't think there's enough information that we can talk about. But cyclical burnout will happen a lot with business owners. I see it more with business owners than I do outside of business owners.
Oh, I'm definitely relating to that. And I know lots of women I work with would relate to that as well, in a similar way. And it's not easy when it's complicated with, I have an ADHD diagnosis, and so do lots of the women that I help and support, because they relate to me. But when you add that into the mix with something like ADHD, where you'll hyper focus, but then you'll get overwhelmed and those sorts of things too, it's almost driving you towards burnout sometimes, and you've got to go, whoa, like, slow down.
So ADHD burnout, so I've got ADHD as well, and this is something that I do find ADHD people will typically, especially ADHD women, it is hard to get a diagnosis. So that's one thing. I think it's easier to burn out because you do already cycle through between that. If you go through the stages of burnout and you look at the stages of ADHD, they're pretty similar. But the thing is, with ADHD, you can feel like you're run by a motor. And that, so even when you're physically tired, your brain could be running 100 miles an hour. So you're still doing something.
Yeah.
But you're not listening to the cues of your physical well-being until it catches up. So that's a topic for another day too.
That's a whole nother topic. But definitely throwing that into the mix, and like you say, and with hormonal changes and everything else, it's like, it's tough. You said earlier about like that when I get this thing done, or when I'm past this project or whatever it may be, then I'll be able to get into this better routine and it's like, it never comes, it never happens. If you, if you're like me and you try and put like a month's worth of work into a day and then feel bummed that you didn't achieve it, like, once that's done, then I will. Even if we can intellectualize that, we get it, and we know that we're setting unachievable goals and pushing ourselves too hard. So how, like, I can sit there and go, yeah, I know that when will never come, and I need to adopt these behaviors now and today. But like you said, we slip into these patterns as high achievers. Like, what are some practical steps that we can do to, because I'm sure they're common sense, simple things that we just
100%.
Don't do, right? Yeah.
So
it's no secret. It's no secret.
No, and this is something that, everyone's like, oh, your advice is always so simple. And I'm like, yeah, but you need to figure out what's getting in your own way and why you're not doing the simple things.
Right.
And so do you know what? I take the same approach as I did when I was a nutritionist. I'm still a nutritionist, but when I was running my first business. So I ran my first business when I was 20. And I remember, bear with me, this is a story, but I remember people would come into my office and I would say, tell me a little bit about your diet. So they're obviously seeing me for a reason because they want support with whatever nutrition advice they need. Typically, I was working at a gym, so it would be weight loss or weight, bulk up, whatever it is. The weight loss people I would always say, tell me, like, give me an example of your diet. And they, every single time, would give me the most perfect, to the calorie practically, diet plan. They'd be like, I eat this for breakfast, I eat this for lunch, I have this for dinner, these are my snacks. It was perfect. It was literally on point. And I'm like, And so being really honest with yourself, how often are you actually doing that? And they're like, well, every now and then I have the weekends and I don't follow the diet on the weekends. I'm like, well, when does your weekend start? Well, Thursday I'll probably start, having a night out. And then, it's Friday, Saturday, Sunday is just a write-off. And so I'm like, so half your week you're not following this most perfect diet. And I'm like, and be really honest, on the days that you are doing it, are you being really perfect? Oh, no, because... So we can see a pattern there. So we all know what we need to do. Yeah. So what I had to do with those people, and this is something for people to really think about, it's what I call calling BS on yourself, because we can all trick ourselves into thinking we're doing the right things. But we know when we're not. So it's being able to take a step back and coming at it from a non-judgmental standpoint, which is looking at what is getting in my way from doing that. And you can look at it, you can break it down. Is it a physical thing? Do I have a physical barrier? Do I not have access to actually do these things? Like, is there something physically getting in my way? Is it a mindset thing? Is it I'm losing track of time, I'm not prioritizing it, I don't know how to prioritize it? That's really simple stuff there. Or is it something more deep? Is there something that's preventing you? So, for instance, I have somebody, like one of my clients, one of the biggest things I have to deal with my clients is helping them relate to their emotions a bit better, because emotions will make you, every decision you've ever made will come from an emotion. So understanding the emotion that's getting in the way from you putting that in there. When it's business owners, a lot of it is, I feel bad for not putting more effort into my business, or I feel too busy, or it's a lot of guilt. My lady clients are always like, it's a lot of guilt why they're not doing the right things because there's not enough time. And so the first thing you have to do is recognize what's getting in your way. Is it a physical barrier? Is it a mental barrier? Is it an emotional barrier? Is there an emotion getting in the way that's preventing you from taking care of yourself and doing the right things? And I think, depending on when you grew up and depending on the information you got given. I mean, I grew up I was born in the 80s. I grew up mainly in the 90s. And the rhetoric was work really, really hard, and then you can, then you'll reap the rewards when you can retire. And it's like, it's a really long time.
Yeah, right.
And I think that messaging is sort of seeped into us, so we forget that we're a human being. And then I think there's this whole other rhetoric around, stress is a part of everyday life. And then don't forget about, the conversations around, stress drives me to success. So there's so much things that we have to unpick and undo. So that's what I'm saying to people, figure out what gets in your way, call a little BS. And the minute you acknowledge it, you take back the power.
Yeah.
And so you can start recognizing what you can do. and sort of building out that mindset where it's like when you're wanting to do something for yourself, you know, when you have that anxiety, it's like, oh, I shouldn't really do this. I've got so much other things to do. You have to put a toolkit in place to sort of combat that.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that's so true. And it is that knowing, that's where you get from the knowing to the doing. So it's identifying, why are you not doing it? That involves some sort of deep conversation with yourself, doesn't it? And then seeking the you know, where maybe you need the support with that and who might be able to help you with that as well. And trying to figure it all out by ourselves all the time. The other thing I was going to ask you is, when we burn out, does it typically come from the mind or the body? I know the effects will show in the body when we get to the stages where we're feeling unwell, but obviously athletes can burn out from physical exhaustion and overtraining and that sort of thing. But my understanding is that we can burn out purely mentally from a mental place of.
Yes. So
is that right?
Yes. So when we look at burnout and we look at it's so funny, I literally just got my hand on this book, and it's such a hard book to get your hands on, which is the first book ever written about burnout, and it was actually produced in the 80s.
Wow.
And the first time that burnout was originally coined was in 1976. Wow. So it's been coined a long time, and the guy that coined it was a psychiatrist who, like I was saying before, would go into these organizations and look at these high performers. And he would look at this physical, mental, and emotional burnout. And I think when we look at athletes, when they physically burn out, it's very different when it comes from the way that we're looking at it today, which is that sort of mental, emotional, and physical burnout. So what we have to understand is that if we kind of look at the stress response is a physical response to a perceived threat. And if we just break that down into modern day society, it's how we perceive stress, how we take on situations. So if we're in a situation and we perceive it as stressful, we're going to have a physical response to it, whether we like it or not. And if we go back to, like, you know, the traditional way we look at the stress response, which is the fight or flight response, we're physically priming ourselves to physically run away or fight that potential threat. You fast forward to modern day society, really, really think about it. Can you really physically run away from that threat? Can you physically fight that threat? Doesn't make societal sense to do that. You know, we can talk about freeze as well. But realistically, we're not doing that. So we're not even going through the process of the fight or flight response. So we're not getting out of it. So we're sitting in this physical response. So we've this, like I said, this physical response that we're having from something that we're perceiving as a threat. So if we're going into a big business meeting and we're worried about what our investors are going to say, what our, you know, C-suite board's going to say, we're still having the same physical reaction as if we were seeing a saber-toothed tiger from, you know, thousands and thousands of years ago. So it is a physical and mental relationship that you've got to be able to build together. And I know a lot of people have done books about the body and the mind connection, but really understanding how that works in such a simple way is, if you perceive something as a threat, you're physically going to feel it. Like your heart starts to pump. You might get sweaty. You might sort of, you know, tense up. All of these things. It's a physical response to that perception of that threat.
So we have that physical response. Instead of running away from the board meeting or fighting it, we obviously, these other things come up, but we go ahead anyway and we keep pushing. And that's obviously really very draining over a period of time.
Yeah. And especially when you leave that board meeting and maybe that stress has been removed, so you kind of calm down, but then you've also got all the other things that say, well, I need to make sure my sales team's doing what they need to be doing. I need to make sure that I'm growing. I need to make sure that my team's happy. Oh gosh, I've got a meeting with so-and-so who's having issues with somebody in their team. Like, it's just constant. And the thing is, although we might be able to say, yeah, but once you leave that board meeting, you're no longer stressed about the board meeting. It's like, yeah, but what other things are stressing you out? Like, what are the other things that you're perceiving as and we're just talking about work. We're not talking about, like, crap, I've got to get home to take my kids to netball, or oh my God, I've got to go have this conversation with my husband or partner or whatever it is. Like, stress is coming at us constantly. Yeah. And if we're not dealing with it effectively, it's going to have that physical impact. We're still having the same physical responses.
Yeah.
But we're just not overcoming them.
Yeah, like you said there as well, and stress is part of everyday life, and we know that, but we need to manage it, not just in, I guess, the amount, but also in how we process it. Because there are times that I think, especially for women who are running businesses and families, you have enough on and teams and everything, you have enough going on in your work world, and then your brain is constantly, have the kids got this, is this booked, is this logistical thing arranged? It's endless, and there's not like an end to that. And there is no like, well, great, so when we get to the 25th of November, it will all be fine. It won't be. It's going to carry on. So we need strategies to make that work every day, all the time, starting now. Like that's so that makes me think about overwhelm and stress, and then burnout becoming, on the cards inevitably. I'd have thought. Like exploring that for a moment. Stress, I know sometimes with overwhelm can come paralysis. Like I've done this before. I've literally frozen, even in the kitchen, going, wait a second, which thing do I do first? There are too many. And then I do nothing. But I imagine that's
so 100%. One of the funniest things that I always talk about, and I will die on this hill, and I will die so hard on this hill. I mean, I die on a few hills, but this is one of those I really die on. A lot of the times when we think about, you're talking about overwhelm, and you're talking about the paralysis of not being able to do that. There's another word for it, which is procrastination. You get so overwhelmed that you can't take action, so you start procrastinating about all the things you've got to do. Then your brain gets into overwhelm, and then you might have ineffective coping mechanisms that come into place, which procrastination is one. I will die on the hill that procrastination comes from stress, regardless if it's stress from having too much to do or having feeling like you're not sure what to do, and maybe you don't have a lot of stress. Like maybe you're trying to like build a business and you're not quite sure how to build the business, and there's so many things you could be doing and all that kind of stuff. Procrastination comes from stress and overwhelm. And I think when it comes to that, it's being able to go press pause, going, okay, I'm feeling overwhelmed, I'm planning to procrastinate, recognize the behaviors that you've got around that. So for instance, when I'm really overwhelmed, I sometimes don't know until I'm like scrolling through Instagram. I'm like, I don't even remember picking up my phone. Like, when did I even pick up my phone, and how am I like halfway through Instagram right now? Or maybe I'm just sort of wanting to like scroll through. It's usually social media. Like that's my point where I'm like, I'm so overwhelmed. Let me go fill my mind with just absolute crap, which is not going to help anyone, but it's understanding those behaviors. But giving yourself permission to pause, acknowledge that, okay, I'm really overwhelmed. Okay, take a deep breath. And then really just asking yourself, what is one thing I could realistically do today in this moment, not today, but in this moment, that's a quick win, that is going to get me a little bit closer to my goal, that is going to get something off my to-do list that I can do right now, that I have the capacity to do right now. Screw all the other things that's going on through your head. It's like, but what about this? It's like, no. We're going to focus on this one thing. And I always say to people, do a quick win when you're procrastinating, you're feeling really overwhelmed. Like there's that pause moment, take a deep breath, remove yourself, then think about what's one thing you can do. And the reason why I say that is because when you're procrastinating, it's just going to be perpetual, and it's going to continue to happen. But if you give yourself one action to do, that action will create momentum, and that momentum will create motivation. Being overwhelmed is extremely emotionally and physically draining. But if you do one thing that's going to get you a little bit closer, that momentum starts to pick up and that motivation will kick in. And I think being able to do that can be so, so helpful. And I think sometimes it's also picking your battles in those moments. You can't do everything. So there's a really good book. So I'm going on a tangent, but there's a really good book. And I am going to have to try and remember it, but it was all about time management. And you know what? It's so funny. I bought the book and I'm like, the cover does not look great. Like, no offense to this person that wrote it. It's actually one of the best books out there on time management and procrastination and stuff like that. When I remember, I'll send it over to you so you can pop it in the links.
Sure.
I can see the cover, but I can't see the name of it, which is so flippin' annoying.
Sounds like something I've probably read.
But pretty much his whole conversation was, there's no such thing as a time hack. You just have to accept that you can't get everything done. That's just you just have to accept that and just do what you can do and with the energy that you've got in that moment.
And then you'll feel better, right? You'll get that little bit of a dopamine hit from achieving something, because we're the high achievers here in the room, and you go, great, okay, that's one little needle move. Rather than trying to, I saw a really good image, actually, one of my teams shared this with me, of somebody trying to climb a ladder with a huge gap in the rungs, and it's like can't get there, whereas the person who's just doing the little rungs is like taking over because they're moving a little bit rather than trying to take that giant leap.
The little things that are going to add up that you can realistically do and consistently do. And I think when you, like, for instance, if you're a business owner and you're like, I really need to get back into the gym, why don't you just start with like, okay, I think I can manage a 10-minute walk at lunchtime.
Yeah.
Just do that.
Just
like,
keep
if that's
it small.
one thing you can do and you can feel, okay, and then you feel a little bit better. Well, I've done that. Well, maybe I could do a 10-minute jog. Oh, okay, fabulous. Okay, maybe, do you know what? I have an extra bit of time. Push that to 15 minutes. It's all about starting, like, meeting yourself with where you're at, with what tools you have right now, and taking that one bit of action. And I think it's so easy as high achievers to always think about 10 steps ahead of yourself or 100 steps ahead of yourself. But actually having the ability to draw back and really focus on where you're at and blocking out as much noise as you can and thinking, what's one thing I can do? That is so helpful.
And then it becomes habitual, and then it becomes easy, because I suppose perfectionism can creep in here, because if you go, well, I want to do this thing and I want to do it to this level or this standard. I described this the other day to somebody as like, it's like I know what I want to do, and here it is, and now it's this massive suitcase that I need to unpack and deal with. And I'm like, right, well, when I've done all these other things, then I'll get onto that. Meanwhile, nothing happens. Actually, instead of doing that, but that feels like a massive suitcase that I've had to shove over there, if I actually just do this little thing, this little thing, this little thing, I'm doing, in essence, what is in there, but in little stages, and it's moving rather than it's stood still and parked over there because I haven't got around to it yet.
100%. I remember I was speaking to somebody. They wanted to get into speaking, and they were like, I've been watching all these TED Talks and I've been watching all these professional speakers, and I'm just not at the level of them. I'm like, do you think that they started off at the level that they are right now? No, they started off really small. Like, I remember when I started my speaking career, this is just, I'm going on a tangent, but this is just giving this is sort of going to feed into what you just said. But I would email companies that, can I come and do a free lunch and learn, just to see if I was good at it. Because in my head, I'm like, well, I'm not great, then they haven't paid for anything. I've just wasted an hour of someone's time, but what's that really? Like, it's not the end of the world. And then built myself up and then sort of adding to it. And I think we always think about that perfectionism. And don't get me wrong, I'm like, I say I'm an ex-perfectionist, but don't get me wrong, perfectionism still kicks in. And do you know when perfectionism kicks in really hard? When I'm stressed out. So it's like that trigger. But I think it's just sort of being able to do that one thing. Do that one thing that you can do. And even if it's not the best in that moment, you've got that momentum. You've got that momentum just to keep going, and you can learn from it. And it's all about that refining rather than being perfect.
And then it feels good, which means it's not then some big thing that you're stressed that you haven't got to, or you're adding to your list or creating more overwhelm, because you're moving on it. Yeah, there's something at the moment I've been thinking about doing, and I've got this vision of how it could be done to the most professionally polished, wonderful standard. But if I aim for that, I won't get to it. Whereas if I go, well, it's fine, there's another way I can kind of do it and it'll be fine. Like, do that then. Just get it done. Just get it moving.
So whatever
just start.
I always say to people, every single day when you're working towards a goal, always think about what's close. What I say, this is all sales, like, but it's always like, what's closest to the money? What's closest to your ability to achieve? Like, what's the closest thing you can do? do that.
Yeah.
Do that. And know that you're going to do it great. So I think that is something that can be extremely helpful.
Definitely. Oh, yes. I think there's so much in here that's going to resonate with people, especially business owners. And there was something I wanted to ask you about that apathy stage and that sort of, when so many women start businesses from a place of passion, from a place of, something that they want to give back, something that they're good at, it's rarely the thing you go and do for money, right? You start off because it's that thing that you really, really care about. And when it comes to a point that you're starting to feel that, just want to burn this thing to the ground, or like, it's just too hard, or it's just the mountain is too big, and you feel like it's hopeless, but you can't stop because you deep down know that it's your mission and your purpose. Like I see and hear of that a lot. And when people are like, don't give up on your dreams, come on, this is right around the corner. Yeah. Well, like, what would you say to people who have feeling those feelings of apathy, to just pull back and get they're in this cycle, or what
I think as well, so that I think there's two things there. I don't know if it's apathy or if there's that. I mean, it is apathy because you can, my camera's just blurred out, I don't know if this is a video. There is that point where there's apathy, but then which is coming from pure stress, but then there's also that apathy that comes back from not getting the recognition and the rewards that you're looking to receive. Two things there then. What you need to take a step back from is, a lot of people when they set up businesses, they're like, I'm going to be a millionaire in the next 5 years, and I'm going to read all these books about people that made their millions in like 6 months. And it's like you're comparing yourself to those people. And I think there's an ability for you in that moment. So if you're feeling like you're not getting where you want to go, looking back at where you started and seeing how far you have come, and giving yourself permission to recognize that and actually embrace that and do that. Like I do it all the time. Like in my head, I came to the UK and I didn't know anyone. Like I moved here with an idea to build a business, which is get your shit together. But I didn't know any businesses. I didn't know anyone. And I had $10 on my bank account, so I had to make it work. In my head, I had to make it work. I still have moments where I'm like, I'm not where I want to be. It's like, Jesus Christ, if you talked to Katie from 6 years ago, she would be in awe of what I've achieved.
Yeah.
And I think it's that recognition of, again, it comes back to that ladder analogy, which is like, what small steps have you taken to get where you're at? Maybe you're not exactly where you want to be, but also you've just got to look at like, why aren't you there? Or like, what's getting in your way? And it's also sort of living in the moments that you have had that success and sort of going with it, like and embracing that. I think apathy when you run a business, and maybe it is really successful and you're so busy and you can't take care of yourself and you're like, I freaking hate this business, even though it's successful, right?
Yeah. I
think that's a point in time where you've actually, because the apathy phase, it's not that you don't care, it's you just can't care because you're so worn out. So if you're a business owner and you're really busy, and even though you're successful and you're getting what you want to do, and because not all stress is coming from, not getting what you want, and some of it is just, I'm doing too much of what I want and I can't stop. It's being able to have that moment in time and pausing and going, how can I do this differently to make sure that I can fill my cup? And I think that's really important. I mean, it goes for both ways, really. Like, what can I do that's going to help me fill my cup?
Yeah, I think, are there any kind of so somebody who doesn't recognize burnout, or, if somebody's like, oh no, well, yeah, I've got a lot on, I'm busy, blah, blah, blah. But are there any little indicators other than getting to that health stage where you're going, wow, okay, I'm getting sick when I wouldn't normally, or these, the obvious ones? Like, for instance, is this one where if you reach a point where you go, if somebody so much as asks me for, or to pick up a pint of milk, I'm going to break the straw that's going to break the camel's back. Like, are there anything subtle things that you would go, oh, wow, okay, that's a sign?
I think as well, I think some of the subtle signs that I recognized was I stopped doing things that I enjoyed.
Okay.
Because I was too busy.
Right.
And that was like early stages. That was like, you know, I'm not going out with my mates because I'm building my empire or whatever. Like whatever it is, what was going through my head at the time.
Stop having fun.
Stop having fun. Like I think there was this element of, you know, when you've achieved, again, it comes down to if you're winning, in yourself, have a chat with yourself, because that's a pretty big sign. Yeah. But I think if it's really that element of like, if one person asks me to bring that pint of milk, I'm going to lose my absolute goddamn mind. I think there is a conversation to have with yourself, because it's like, but also that can also be like, are you always getting pints of milk because people are drinking it and then not letting you know and then not doing it themselves? Because that is really actually rather annoying. But it's that how are you dealing with it kind of element. But I think the early stages really are when you see behavioural changes in yourself that are consistent. So it's not like everyone has a bad day. Like, do not get me wrong. I have my moments where my fiance and I'm like, just grated on me in the wrong way, but for no reason. Like, it was just once off. I'm like, I'm so sorry. Like, but if it's constant, but there's that behavioural change. I think that's the biggest one when most people will notice. It's the behavioural changes that you're going to have.
And that it's sticking around and you're like, this isn't just an odd day. This is
consistent. Like, you wake up pissed off, you go to bed pissed off, and that's been going on for a couple of weeks. Like, let's have a chat about that. Like, that might not be burnout, it might be something else, but let's have a chat about that, because obviously something needs to be fixed.
If like you see people who are in like maybe corporate roles where they're, you know, feeling, I've never been in that world, so I don't know, but I hear these stories of like, you know, soul destroying, underappreciated, overworked, not happy, and stress levels are high. And you hear of people who go, I left that world because I was burnt out and I felt rubbish and I set about becoming an entrepreneur. And I then think, it's not any easier. But if you're like, I can't just quit. I can't just go, right, that's it, I'm done, I need to change that. So it's like, well, I guess what we're talking about, which is we'll then look at, we're going to keep going, but we need to reshape how we keep going, the behaviours, what's getting in the way of us doing this in a steady, calm...
And the perception, right? Like, I think, like, don't get me wrong, I've been in some pretty crazy... I've worked in corporate. Like, I get the soul. I remember at my desk at 25, I had tears rolling down my face going like, if this is my life for the next, like, 50 years, I don't know why this life exists. Like, it was so freaking existential at 25. And it was soul-destroying. But I think there's a part of people, if you're... Because, I mean, we are in a situation at the moment in the UK where a lot of people are feeling burnt out. And so you've got burnt out people in the job market. They're entering another corporate job, but it's going to be the same thing if you've got the same perceptions, right? Mm-hmm. If you can't change your scenario dramatically, you know, I hate the saying, I'm going to go with it. If you hate your situation, you're not a tree, you know, move. It's like some people just aren't in that scenario. Like, people are like, well, just quit your job and find something else. No, it's not that easy for some people. You have responsibilities. We're in a financial situation where people don't have savings where they can just quit their job and do something else and just, you know, it's not about that. So for those people that might not be in right this second, because I'm always saying to people, obviously keep looking to change your situation and do it in the most realistic way for you. But if you're in a shitty situation, there's so many things you've got to do. The first thing to do is start filling your cup. Like, do something every single day that's going to make you happy that has nothing to do with your job.
Yeah. Also,
change how you perceive your work. Recognize it's just a job. I don't need to give my heart and soul to this job. I can, what is the, you know, the tick boxes I need to tick to make sure that I can keep doing this job. Detach yourself emotionally from that work. And I know a lot of people, I saw a post today about it, which is like, people are burnt out because they don't have a why. I'll disagree with that. But if you are not passionate about what you do, that's okay. Find something else that you're passionate about. Maybe that is building, I don't know, like, I don't know why this is in my head, but like a gingerbread house. Like, do that. Like, if it's cooking, cook. Like, do something that you can do that does fill your cup. And emotionally detach yourself from work. And I think the biggest thing is, you know, people go, I've got this really toxic manager. What I find with toxic managers, the more power you give them, the more power they'll take. So if I've had a toxic manager before where they would constantly scream and shout at me, and I just personally was like, I'm not going to take this personally, I put up boundaries and I just shut down every time they spoke to me. And in what I meant, it was just sort of like whatever. Like, I know that's my personality, and I have that as I'm not that sensitive. When people are being mean to me, it is like sort of water off a duck's back. But I think there is this part of only engaging in what makes sense to you. And I know that's not the best advice for everybody, but I do find that really helpful.
I think the same would go for business owners as well, in that you are not your business. And even though it's your passion, like I'm passionate about my businesses, and I was at a different event recently, which really reconnected me with why I do what I do. And I was like, oh yes, this is what it's all about, because you can spend days behind a computer and, managing things and fighting fires. But when you actually go to things that reminds you and reconnects you with it, that's so powerful. But still, I am not my business. And I think that's one of the biggest lessons I've had to learn, because then you can step away and go, no, I'm gonna do, like you say, something that lights me up. And when you put everything into that, because for a long time that was me, like I'd make every hobby I ever had into a business. I didn't really ever do anything that was just for fun. It was always part of business. And it's great loving what you do, but when you don't love it so much, you need somewhere to go.
I always say to people, you're more likely to burn out if you love what you do. Like, I know, because there's no boundaries to it. And like, I lived and breathed my business for so many years. And then I caught myself a few years ago going, like, I talk to people about stress and burnout, and I don't have anything outside of this business because I love it so much, but I'm also like, I don't want to hate it. So it was finding what I enjoy doing and having that moment out of it. You are not your business, and you're more than your business. Like, I think that's what people have to recognize. And I think we're kind of in that moment where it's like, you have to live and breathe your business 100% of the time. And there's times when that might be true, like when you're a startup, but that's not always true. Like, you are a whole human being. You have other hobbies and have other things outside of your business. Yeah. And you've got to do what fills your cup. Like, a lot of my clients love gardening. A lot of my clients love reading books. A lot of my clients, I have one client that loves to race cars. She's brilliant.
Cool.
And she has a crazy corporate job. Like a crazy corporate job, but she loves to race cars and read books and then knit. I'm like, that's amazing.
It refuels you, doesn't it? And I think that's it. Like, I've had times where I would say, I love working. Like, and especially when people are building something, they go, oh, I can't wait to spend some time on this evening, or when the kids are in bed, and, you're really passionate. And like you say, there can be phases when it's okay. There's times when I would have definitely gone, yeah, I'm a total workaholic, but I love it. But there comes the danger of getting into a pattern with that, where there aren't boundaries, which then means you start eliminating all the other cup filling things. Yeah. So you can't get off that really fast roller coaster.
You're trying to fill your cup from the one thing that's draining your cup, because it used to fill your cup and now it's draining your cup, and that's a very confusing moment in time when that happens.
Yeah.
But always having that outside sort of check.
Yeah.
I think that's important.
Definitely. I actually took my husband out yesterday evening to an event, which was a birthday present for him, and just going to it, I thought, I just really need to do this kind of thing more. Just stepping out, just stepping away and doing something that, even if it wasn't, magnificent thing. It was just something, just anything, but just the steps out of the day-to-day.
That's important. I think it's just figuring it out what you like as well. Like, I've just moved to the country, and this weekend, switching off, I have an apple tree in my garden. I had one of my neighbours rock up to my house, and he's like, hey, we have apple juicing on the weekends in October. Can you bring some of your apples, and will you join a team of apple juicing? I'm like, sure, why not? So
Brilliant.
random. So random. Will I sell it? No. Will I probably make some cider? Maybe. Will I sell that? No. Like, it's
just for fun.
Just something to, like, try something new, do something that's just so outside of what you do.
Yeah.
And it's just like, have a giggle about it.
Like, definitely. It's got to be fun, right? I always say, I'm in my 40s and I do not want to get to 50 and look back, or whatever your milestone might be in life, wherever anyone is, I'm looking at this decade that I'm in and going, by the time I get to the end of this decade, my kids are properly grown up. And I'm not going to look back and go, oh my God, I was bound and shackled to my business for like 7-8 years of, and actually for what? In the moment, it feels so important, but will it looking back? And
do you know what? I woke up in my mid-30s, well, probably early 30s, and I was like, I just want to have fun. And don't get me wrong, running a business isn't always fun, but I always find the fun in everything I do. And I find this business, I mean, my business name is kind of funny, so that always makes me smile. But I think it's like we take stuff so seriously. Like, just have fun with it. Like,
just have fun.
Like, I talk about something really serious. I talk about burnout. I talk about businesses. I talk about profit margins. I do all of these things. I talk about P&L and how burnout impacts the P&L and all of that stuff. But I always do it in a fun way.
Yeah.
Because if I'm not having fun, it's not worth it. And so everything I go into, it has to be fun. Like, there has to be some part of like fun in it. Even if it's something I don't want to do, I'm just going to make this fun.
Yeah. Yeah, and with that, you're going to bring that out of the people that you talk to, right? So that's the point and purpose of what you do is to help people to escape that place of burnout. So yeah, I love that. Oh my gosh, I think this is just the best conversation. I'm sure I could ask you a million more things. I think if we could leave our listeners with like, I would go back and want to re-listen and take in every nugget of wisdom. But if there was one simple like takeaway point that you would be like, this is the thing you need to remember from this episode or take away from this, what would you think
I'm going to add something in. So the first thing that I would say to people is know the signs of burnout. So listen to that, the 6 stages. So go back and listen to that. And then what I would say to people, because the first step to overcoming burnout and managing stress is that acknowledgement phase, is acknowledging where you're at. And the best way to acknowledge where you're at and to call BS on yourself and to be really honest with yourself is every single morning, wake up and ask yourself, how am I physically doing? How am I mentally doing? How am I emotionally doing? To be fair, I tried this when someone gave me this piece of advice, but because my brain was like, I don't know, and was like going through so much stuff, I had to scale it. So put a scale in it. So scale from 0 to 10, 0 being I'm completely tapped out, 10 being I'm absolutely amazing. Give yourself a rating of that. And if you are 7 or below, ask yourself, what is one thing I can do today that's going to bring me a little bit closer to a 10? And it could be as simple as I just need 5 minutes of silence. It could be as simple as I need to go into the garden and just have a cup of coffee. I need to scream into a pillow. Whatever it is, it doesn't have to be big. It can be one really small thing. What do you need? And it also allows you to know, like, what help do you need to ask? So just that would be the one thing I would say to people, because the minute you know where you're at, you know that you need to start looking for that support. That would be my biggest thing to leave people on. Yeah, no, it's great. It's a great thing, and it's so achievable. It's simple. Yeah. You can just go do that now. Yeah, so, exactly. Yeah. Oh, that's amazing. Katie, thank you so much for coming and talking to us about this. I feel like there is more to explore and maybe another episode in the future where we drill into another nuance of all of that. But if you are when-ifing yourself, which is a phrase I'm definitely taking away from today, stop. I'm guilty of it too. I think we all do it. I'm very aware when I do it, but I'm sure lots of us are not aware that we even do it. So thank you so much for being with us today. We will, of course, drop the links to the things you've mentioned in the show notes. If anybody is like desperate to reach out to you and wants to connect with you, where do you mostly hang out online? So LinkedIn is the best place. Yeah. Although I've been getting better with Instagram. And so you can either LinkedIn with me, which is Katie Maycock, and I'll send you the links, or you can jump on Instagram, which is just my business name, which is the handle. So getyourshittogether.io. Yeah. You can find me there. Perfect. That. Yeah. We will drop all the links in. Amazing. Katie, once again, thank you so much. Thank you for having me. You're welcome. I hope you enjoyed this episode, and remember, go out there and shine your light bright because you were born to be brilliant.